we get to close to the 3-hour mark, and a young shark gets involved. And his name is Senator Harold Jones. He might be a legend at this point. So Harold Jones comes into play, right? And he is completely focused on the disqualification hearing. He's not. So now Senator Harold Jones is the minority whip, is what they call it. Pretty much the minority leader of the Senate. So he starts to question Ashley Merchant, and it's all about this disqualification thing. And he's telling her pretty much, your disqualification brief and motion don't make sense. Honestly, he pretty much pulled her lawyer card. Right? So she like, oh, you put this motion together and you cite this case, Whitworth, the Whitworth case, right? They kept bringing up this Whitworth, and he's going down there with it. And I quickly realized this man is a lawyer. He's not just some elected official that's just like listening and trying to follow along and all that. He's a lawyer. Senator Harold Jones is a former attorney. So him questioning her, whole different ballgame. What Harold Jones did is what those prosecutors in that argument should have done at the final argument. That's how you break down somebody's argument. That's how you show that they don't know what they're talking about. That's how you do what you're supposed to do. Proper. He did what he's supposed to do, right? So he's telling Ashley Merchant, this Whitworth thing, this talking about a conflict of interest, pretty much even in the case that you cited, and she cited this as pretty much her case law to back up her motion, it doesn't even agree with the outcome she's looking for. It's pretty much what Harold Jones is trying to say. He's like, and then Ashley Merchant is like, I don't remember what it says. Like, I need to read it. But he's saying this is the basis for your entire motion. Like, why don't you know what it even says? And it doesn't even say what you are alleging is happening in this case. You know, one is dealing with the outcome of the case. In this situation, you're saying that it's a conflict with the prosecution itself, and they're gaining from prosecuting in and of itself, and they're not actually worried about the outcome, which is what Whitworth. They're worried about outcome. They need a conviction, or they need to. They talked about forfeiture and needing to keep money or whatever like that. So
the site is Whitworth. The court recognized a conflict of interest as a ground for disqualification. Held to arise where the prosecutor had acquired a personal interest or stake in the defendant's conviction. And I don't, I wish I had that case in front of me. I don't have the case in front of me, but essentially, to answer your question, that first of all is physical precedent only. So
right.
Yes, and we
but you did cite it.
And said
right.
that it's physical precedent only.
And you're using that as the basis, really, to say it's a conflict. There's no other case law that you actually use in this particular brief to say it's a conflict other than Whitworth, and also amusement sales, which deals with contingency fee.
Right.
And so in Whitworth, and I have the case if you want to go through it, it actually talks about that there's ways of citing the conflict.
Right.
Number one would be if he had, or prosecutor had actually spoken to the defendant. Has that taken place?
No.
Okay. Second, has he represented the defendant?
No.
So what you're saying is the actual conflict is just bringing it.
No, the actual conflict is, that's a long answer. The actual conflict is lying on your disclosures about how much money
I'm talking as far as this issue is concerned right here. When you use Whitworth, you use amusement sales, and they say that there has to be an actual conflict. And amusement sales, and let's go back to Whitworth if we can, because in Whitworth, the person was actually told, the prosecutor was actually told by another prosecutor that they want the case to actually resolve in a conviction. Because what had happened was the defense attorney came to the prosecutor and said, we would like to plead. Mm-hmm. And the prosecutor basically said, no. He went and got advice from somebody, and that prosecutor said, we would like this case to resolve in a conviction.
Right.
And so the question, and that then was held not to be a conflict. They said that still is not an actual conflict, even though someone told that prosecutor, we want to see a conviction. We actually want to see it go to the end. Don't plea him out. And the court said, no, that's not an actual conflict, because what you have to show is there's an actual unfairness to the defendant in the trial.
Right.
Can you point to any unfairness in the trial that's taking place?
and sorry to get too deep into the details, but Senator Harold Jones really pulled her card. He's like, yo, you cited this, and she was like, I don't know what it says. I need to read it. So the fact that your main basis for your argument, you don't even remember what it says in there, it's almost like you didn't think there was a conflict of interest. You just needed a reason to expose Fani Willis. And that's pretty much what Senator Harold Jones he kept on saying is like, because Ashley Merchant kept on like trying to pivot off and go start talking about something else and this impropriety. He's like, no, but let's just focus on this part here. You cited this case, and this case does not agree with anything you're saying about this scenario. It was ruled at the end that it wasn't even a conflict. And then she started bringing up other stuff. He's like, but bring it back. Bring it back. Let's stay focused on this right here. So pretty much Harold Jones's agenda was for sure to make it look like her case was invalid or her disqualification motion was invalid. And if that was his agenda, he for sure did what he had to do. But I think there's two different things here. Because he also started to bring up, like, why are you saying Nathan Wade is not qualified and all that type of stuff? And he was part of the grand jury, the special grand jury. So he must know something. He must have been involved with something. He must be qualified. And so he didn't like that. He took exception to it. And honestly, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to reach out to Senator Harold Jones to try to get me an interview with him. He followed me back, but he didn't read my message. I'm also saying that I don't think he should have been selected either. That's if you let me interview you, you can tell me why what I'm saying is wrong. And I know that as black professionals, we're not supposed to say stuff like that, but my content is for black people. So it's not like I'm going in front of a bunch of white people saying that a black man shouldn't be selected. I'm saying there's other black people that were in that office that were qualified, more qualified. They should have been selected. So shout out to Harold Jones. He did the job that the prosecutor should have did 2 weeks ago or last Friday. He did their job for them. So we'll see, but like I said, there's two issues here. The one issue is the disqualification hearing. The other issue is Fani Willis could be brought up on her own charges separately from all of this. And it could be based on this financial stuff that she's doing with this money, because they're saying that even if you try to make all of these gifts and vacations and all that seem insignificant, the rule says, the law, the statute says, or the policy, whatever it is, says that any gift over $100 needs to be reported. And she didn't report. So it doesn't matter if you think it's insignificant. And because Harold Jones did go down and say, do you know what the average vacation, pretty much saying that they weren't taking lavish vacations. These were normal American vacations, and they actually were cheaper than a normal American vacation. It wasn't anything special. And they pretty much went back and forth about that for a while. And then Ashley Merchant was like, after arguing for a minute, she was like, yeah, that's cool, but the standard is $100. So it really doesn't matter if it wasn't $10,000 versus $2,300. All of it is more than $100. So, and if that's the case, because I haven't looked up whatever rule she's talking about with this $100, but if that's the case, then she's right. I don't know what, I don't know. I don't know how else to, she's right if that's the case. If that $100 rule is the case, she's going to be correct there. I'm not going to take up any more of your time with that one, because that is a long situation. That was a 3-hour joint. That was a 3-hour hearing. And I thought it was very interesting. I watched it all. I thought it was very interesting. Shout out to Senator Harold Jones. You did what you could. They also let it be known that because Ashley Merchant was pretty much saying that Nathan Wade added all of or Fani Willis and Nathan Wade, they put all these people in this indictment together because they wanted to be able to they wanted to be able to get as much money for this case as possible. Pretty much, if they would have done these individual cases and done these small individual cases, they wouldn't have been able to have $35,000 months and stuff like that. It would have been small billing because it's just like one little small case. There's minimal evidence, stuff like that. These are could be a misdemeanor. So, and then Harold Jones is saying, they offered you a plea deal and you told them no. You said no to the plea deal. So how can you say they're trying to expand this litigation when you're the one that denied the plea? You would have been finished. You wouldn't have had to deal with this anymore. And they wouldn't have been billing for you. But you wanted to continue. And he sounded like he had a good point. And then her counterpoint to that point was that no, because we would not have been done. Because as part of that plea agreement, all of my charges would have still been included in this overall RICO. So they still would have been using it. And they wanted me, and when I say me, they wanted Michael Roman to testify in the case against the rest of the defendants. So he would have still needed he would have still needed a legal attorney for this whole thing. And he wasn't out of it. He still had to testify. So that's why they turned it down. They didn't want to do that. So anyway, like I said, I'm done with it. I ain't gonna keep talking. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. You know, this is heavy. This is heavy stuff right here.